Welcome to the second episode of the Shiv Nadar School Podcast. I'm Aarya Mahapatra of grade 12 at the Noida Campus. And today I have with me Miss Manjima Chatterjee, the Vice Principal of Shiv Nadar School Noida and the Head of Arts Curriculum across all Shiv Nadar School campuses. Her expertise extends beyond the classroom as she has graced multiple international and national publications with her insightful thoughts. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Aarya. Happy to be here.
To start things off, I would really like to ask you about how your journey with the arts started.
It's a simple question, but it has a slightly complex answer. I come from a Bengali household in Calcutta. And one of these things about, households, typically middle-class households in Calcutta or in Chennai, for instance, is that every child in the house is going to be trained in music, visual arts and dance. So I went that way. At the age of 4, I was enrolled in a visual arts class. At the age of 6, I was enrolled in a dance class. Around the same time, maybe at 7, I was enrolled in a music class. I only got introduced to theatre as an art form when I was in grade 9 and 10. I was doing theatre a long time before that. I performed on a public stage for my school in a play when I was around 8. I played the lead role and I had no clue what theatre was like. Until then, I'd never watched a play, but I was playing a role. So, but I think my training in theatre properly started only when I was in grade 9 and 10, not before that. I'd already taken exams in Trinity before that. So, I've had a very wonky experience with theatre. But yeah, that's my introduction to the arts.
I feel the way you talked about how you've had experiences of all the art forms, I really connect to it because, yes, doing even one art form really opens your eyes to the possibilities of doing others, and that's how you get connected in like that loop of all the arts together. If you're doing one, you're doing some aspect of all.
Absolutely.
I would really like to ask you about how it had an impact on you, apart from your career.
It's like you said, the kind of rigor, the kind of discipline that art brings into your life. For me, Bharatanatyam really helped me to become much more coordinated physically. Like I was saying, proprioception was not my strong suit. To this day, if I don't trip at least once, my day is not complete. So I think Bharatanatyam really gave me a much more comfortable relationship with my body. The whole idea of walking into a space, touching the floor and seeking the blessings of the earth or seeking forgiveness because you're about to stamp on her. It changes your relationship with the planet. Bharatanatyam also taught me multilingualism. To this day, I know about 10 songs in Tamil, a language that I don't speak and frankly don't understand, but I know what each of those songs are about. So I know those songs. But it opened up my world in so many ways. And I think the arts really made me curious about the world and maybe also mingled some of that curiosity with a degree of respect. Maybe in a nutshell, yeah, that.
I think arts also makes you a lot very much self-aware of your surroundings. The way you said that you touch the floor before you step on it. And I'm fascinated by your ability to learn so many things. You know so many languages and you've explored so many art forms. You recently wrote an article on art as emancipatory pedagogy. Would you like to tell our listeners about what emancipatory pedagogy means and how art comes into that context?
Emancipatory pedagogy can have many meanings, but I'm taking it from the perspective of anything that promotes human emancipation. And when we talk about human emancipation, we recognize that as human beings, we are subject to a lot of forces on us. There are social forces, there are economic forces, there are psychological forces. Art is at the same time both internal and external. Art helps us to express our feelings. And our feelings are very deeply embedded within, Like our thinking is very conditioned. by people teaching us what to think, people showing us at all points of time, sharing our expectations, sharing their expectations with us. So we are made to constantly feel that we have to be, or we have to do, or we have to speak in the way that people expect us to. But art comes from a space which is within us. Art enables us to express exactly what is within. It is not colored by external forces. And if we are able to truly offer the kind of pedagogy that allows us as human beings to be our most authentic self, the artistic pedagogy is in its best possible framework, in its best possible space, best possible form. It helps us to dig deep within and find out who we are, express who we are without shame, without expectations, and question. The arts doesn't have an achievement outcome, right? If I want to produce a work of art which is truly me, I could put out a splash of colors that make sense to me. It may not make sense to you, it may not make sense to the next person who's sitting around, but it does have meaning for me. It's a very personal kind of meaning. It's a very personal kind of feeling. You can feel elevated, you can feel distraught. When I see Guernica to this day, I feel really distraught. And yet it's a very clinical work of art, isn't it? It's all angles and, there's nothing very, there's nothing soft about it. There's nothing that draws you into that painting. It's a painting that alienates you. I remember watching Mahishasur Mardini performance where Rajesh sir and Shelja ma'am were dancing. And I remember bursting into tears. And for the life of me, I couldn't have expressed why. But it did that. And I saw that it was not just me. It did that to others also. Now, if you get down to understanding how can we take this outburst of feeling, this ability to relate one human being to another through an artistic medium, how can we turn that into a transaction that takes place in a classroom? Classrooms are structured. Classrooms are time-bound. They're bound by syllabi. How can arts get in there and disrupt those structures? How can art get in there and have fun with it? Make it playful. Make it something that you can take apart and put back together again in a different form. Now that's emancipatory pedagogy. And I think art is the only one that can do it, because art doesn't have those hidebound descriptors that tell you can be only this and nothing else. So, yeah, we have at Shiv Nadar School, we've been working extensively with this. We've worked with the Making Thinking Visible protocols of Project Zero from Harvard. And we've really tried to get into the roots of it, to say, how can we retain the disruptive abilities of art and at the same time connect it with structures that actually help us make sense of the world? Because the human mind also needs structures, no? Otherwise, chaos.
I love the way you put how just taking apart something together and putting it, and how art evokes an emotion in you that you cannot really justify. It's like, even with me, when I dance, I am blocked out from everybody who is watching me. It's just me dancing. It's just me feeling myself and just being there in the space. I think that's an emotion no other activity could, really give that to you. And I would like to point out an instance. During my 10th grade term 1 boards, I performed in Jyotirgamaya just before my before my science exam. And I'm telling you, I did so well, better than expected, just because I did that performance. And I made sure that during my term 2 exams, I performed again before my science exam, which I did on, I don't remember what, I think one of the assemblies on Rabindranath Tagore in school. And I was like, I am content. I'm good at this, and make myself feel better. and just come and do things, whatever comes my way.
But you did well in that exam,
Yes, I
didn't
did
you?
well in that exam, just because I give all the credit to dance.
No, it's true. It's because you let go of that accumulated stress that was inside. You were able to let it out and enjoy being in the moment in dance. Yeah, absolutely.
So you were talking about how emancipatory pedagogy can transform art education. How do you think can that transformation come into classrooms?
If you look at the kind of work that is happening the world over, not just with us, partly I think due to the influence of academics such as Sir Ken Robinson, who's done a lot of work for arts education particularly. And in fact, it is to him that we credit our AHA program, because it is his book, The Element, which really inspired us to develop a space where students could really kind of go out and find their AHA, whether it is art, whether it is sport. But just to say that, how do you look at academics and how do you look at learning in a 21st century world? So the factory system of education is something that we call, it's not just because, it's not just a nomenclature. We call it the factory system of education because it was created to churn out people who could work at factories, at offices, people who could understand processes and follow rules, because those were the only requirements. But when you go into a world dominated by AI and you go into a world which has no known rules, how do you function? So that's where arts comes in. It's not just about developing an emancipatory pedagogy in an arts classroom. It's about taking that fusion into a regular classroom, any classroom, and to say, how can we have a space which is emancipatory? So we have, for instance, when we do, I don't know whether you remember, I think it was your batch, we did that Delhi Sultanate structures with. We created those mosques and everything, remember? So when we were actually looking at the architecture of Delhi during the Sultanate period, it was something that came out of a history lesson. And it was, we were studying it as a mathematics and physics project. It was a STEAM project, but it was done entirely through the arts. So you didn't only learn the theory of things that were going on. You made it. You asked your questions. You said, how did this happen? How did the light hit at this angle? And how did the breeze come in here? And how is this place cooler? And why is it hotter? So it wasn't just something that came off a paper. What happens in such a situation, though, is that this can be very nerve-wracking for a teacher. It is. Because you see, the teacher has studied what was there on the paper. But the teacher has not experienced this emancipatory pedagogy in their own life. So when they come face to face with all these questions, sometimes they don't have answers. And this is where we kind of connect with the understanding of emancipatory pedagogy in a broader framework. So it is a bit of kind of changing the way we look at teaching and learning. And that's where the arts can be a very big game changer.
I think what I realized from whatever you've said right now is that art really helps you, absorb the amount of information you get in academics. For example, there are two projects. If you see one child is really just mugging up the text, what is in front of him or her. But where, if you see in contrast with the project you talked about, where children were building monuments and learning about the light and breeze, it is so much easier to retain that information and logically apply it during your exams. Because when you see a question like that, you're like, oh, I saw this happened, so this is the answer, tick. But once you start mugging up text, it is really hard to recall because there's so much text that you've mugged up. But in contrast to the other project, you've actually seen it happen and you know the answer to it. So I think art really plays a role in opening up your eyes to different sensations as well. Art makes you so sure of yourself. Nothing else can beat that, because it gives you for example, with me, I cannot speak on stage. Like I'm such a nerve wreck on stage speaking on a mic, but being on stage in my dance element is so much different. Like, I can dance on stage as long as I want. And I think that has really helped me also speak up in class, because that has given me the confidence, because many people who don't have a passion or don't have something to look forward to are afraid, are not sure of themselves, because like, I'm not good at anything. Once you're good at something, and everybody has their own element.
Absolutely.
But once you find that something, it is a game changer. And I think most of those some things are from the arts basket.
And that's one of the things that I think it was Picasso who said that every child is an artist when they're born.
Yes.
The challenge is to remain an artist as you grow older, right? Why does that happen? It happens because the school system, our system of raising children per se, strips them of their confidence in themselves, because we're constantly telling them, you don't know this, you need to learn it. Whereas art tells you, you know this, just find it, figure it out. This is one thing. Now what are you going to do with it? And that is, I think, it's both challenging, but at the same time, it's deeply reassuring, isn't it? You know that if I give you a challenge and say, Aarya, in 15 minutes, I need you to keep the stage occupied for 5 minutes. Can you put something up for me? And you say, don't worry, ma'am, I've got it. Right? How do you know that? You know that because you have that confidence, that innate faith in yourself, and that faith in your art. It's a tough space to be in. As adults, we're constantly second-guessing ourselves. We're constantly wondering, can I do this? Am I sure? I'm being asked to do this. Do I know? A lot of people come and ask me, ma'am, you just go up to the mic and you start speaking. How do you do it? And I always tell them the same thing. I'm able to do it because I have faith in myself. That's it. That's all that you need. At the worst, what will happen? You'll make a fool of yourself. You'll laugh with everybody else. Right? What's wrong with that? Are you happy enough with yourself to be able to do that? That's what matters.
I'm just speechless right now because I connect so much with you. Art really, builds that confidence and makes you the person you want to become in the future. I feel with me, if I did not have exposure to a program like AHA, I would have never taken such a large shift in my, art experience, because I started with, my mom put me when I was 4 years old. My mom put me in a dance class for Bollywood. From there, she got to know that there's this teacher who's teaching Bharatnatyam. I went there. I learned for I think 8 years, and in the school I took visual arts as my first AHA basket. I was not really interested, so the next year I chose Kathak, and the amount of opportunities it opened up for me. It's like saying that it was destiny for me to, not be satisfied with visual arts as a AHA basket and taking Kathak, because the teachers gave you so much to learn, so many opportunities where you could show up and, show that, yes, I'm good at this, I can do it. And just showing that, yes, academics is not all that matters, because for me, dance gives me the confidence to show up at that exam.
Yeah.
So art has a very big role to play in what you make yourself in the future. Art really plays a role in what you build of yourself.
It's the foundation stone, isn't it?
It's the foundation stone.
It's right there. It's who you already are. You can only build on top of who you already are. Yeah.
So in the middle of a conversation, you mentioned how AI is taking over. And from many conversations I've had with my friends about my career choice, I want to pursue design. They're like, your job will be taken over AI like this. And I'm like, no, it won't, because creativity is something only humans can bring. So I really want to know your take on this. That do you think AI is going to take over what humans can bring in the arts?
So it's a very interesting thing. I'm a big fan of an author called Isaac Asimov. I don't know whether you're familiar with him. He's a writer who talks about a futuristic world where robots, AI, have taken over everything. Um, of course, there are the 3 laws of robotics that govern what AI can or cannot do, but this is not covered in that. And it's interesting that all of us are talking about this whole thing of AI taking over jobs. But as far as creativity is concerned, here's the thing. Midjourney can create, the entire Game of Thrones cast showing up at a holy party. Right. But can a Midjourney create the thought that is in Aarya's mind? Maybe sometime in the future, maybe we would have, we were able to get Stephen Hawking to talk, to tap out the thoughts in his head. So clearly somewhere that capacity exists. But I think there's a fundamental difference between thought and art, because I would say that art has its origins in feeling. And that is so deeply personal that a second human being cannot replicate your art form. So I wouldn't say you're in much danger as far as that is concerned. But there are certain things that AI could take over. So for instance, we have a lot of people who are currently serving as, say, positors, or people who are simply replicating things, on paper. And I can totally see AI taking over that job. It makes sense, because why would you spend your time and energy in simply making copies of drawings that somebody else has already made if you can get technology to do it for you? But could technology find a solution to a particular problem you're having in design? Theoretically, yes. But I would always say that one of the problems with computers, any form of computer, is that they don't have the inbuilt capacity for error. And I don't know whether that's programmable. The human mind is unique because it doesn't think in straight lines. It doesn't think in known pathways. The human mind expresses itself in terms of sudden sparks, mistakes. Half the inventions that we use today in the world happened because somebody made a mistake, right? I don't see AI being able to do that. I don't see AI taking the space of someone like a Leonardo da Vinci and inventing things that haven't ever been conceptualized. It can build on top of what is already known. It can copy, it can support. But I don't see creativity being under threat.
It can't create.
No. Because the creative imagination is so unpredictable. I don't see that coming under the purview of AI. Yeah. Of course, I may be completely wrong, but I certainly hope not.
I'm going to come to you if AI takes over my job in the next 5 years.
Oh, dear God. I don't know what I'll do. No, that's not going to happen. I'm 100% sure.
So I've had a first-hand experience of the arts curriculum at Shiv Nadar. But for our listeners, if you could tell us what the arts curriculum is like in Shiv Nadar School and how it came to be.
So the arts curriculum at Shiv Nadar School has been put together, keeping in mind the best practices in arts education across the world. And it has been put together by a team of arts practitioners from across the campuses of Shiv Nadar School. We've reviewed standards and practices in different parts of the world, looking at Scotland, looking at some of the other European countries. We've looked at Japan, we've looked at Korea, we've looked at the US, we've looked at some of the African countries. And we've looked at some of the standards that are considered to be the best standards across the world, from the IB, the IGCSE, and we've brought it all in under the umbrella of the NCF. And we've looked at what the expectations are and built over it. This is pretty unique because I don't know of any other school in India that has done this. And I think it's only possible because in Shiv Nadar School, we have always held arts up at such esteem. And we've always considered arts to be an integral part of academic learning. What this does is it gives us a measure for ourselves to see whether we are providing our students with the best kind of learning possibilities at par with how arts is viewed all across the world. And yeah, it's pretty special. We are reviewing it this year after 2 years of applying it, and I have great hopes from the process.
Thank you, ma'am, for joining us, and thank you for the lovely conversation. I had a great time and hope you did too. And this wraps the second episode of the Shiv Nadar School Podcast. Please join us for the next episode as well. Till then, keep enjoying the arts and keep learning.